represent North America.
Last time we were at Burbank, this very spot, we were talking about we're going to win this tournament, and then we ended up doing it. We're coming back, and we have that under our belt, and we're kind of the team to beat.
First round is against Gale Force, and they were actually our first round last time. Last time I was a lot more worried going into the matchup, and this time I think we'll be way more prepared.
I think the teams that think we're weak are definitely underestimating us.
The biggest threats I feel are the top two, which is Naventic and GFE, but everyone is scary at this event.
I definitely think that Naventic's the strongest team in NA at the moment, so we should be able to beat everyone here.
Only the first place is going to qualify for BlizzCon, and yeah, nothing else other than first will leave us fulfilled.
The entire reason we formed this team was to make it to BlizzCon and to win the whole thing. If we didn't make it to BlizzCon, it would be a soul-crushing moment, I guess, for all of us.
Making it to BlizzCon is a dream for all players, and being at this qualifier and having the opportunity to play at BlizzCon is 100% my goal and the drive and the reason that I play this game.
Everybody's looking to improve themselves really here. It's still kind of surreal that I get to come to places like these and compete at this level of competition.
Yeah, there's nothing like playing on stage.
Burbank's obviously super important. It's the first qualifier to get to BlizzCon. BlizzCon is pretty much everything this year.
We want to prove our worth, and we also want to perform even better than all of the NA teams that have competed for those world tournaments.
There's a quote that I go by now. It's work hard enough so your idols become your rivals.
We're very confident against every single team in our group and every single team in this tournament. We can finally put all the naysayers to rest. We used to be the underdogs, and now we're the team to beat.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Heroes of the Storm North America Fall Regional here to start the season here in North America, as we have 8 teams here along for the ride and trying to figure out who is going to be moving on to BlizzCon and finding out who is going to be the very best in the region to start off this fall season. My name is James Kylaris Carroll, and alongside me on the couch this time we have not only a very special guest but a familiar face as well. Actually, our special guest is a very familiar face, to say the least. Of course, we have a previous world champion in Dunk Train here who will be joining us for the analysis throughout the 3 days and festivities that are going to be going down. And then, of course, we have Jay Howe, another analysis from over in Europe as well as here in America. He always seems to kind of fit that role very, very nicely. But now you've been dethroned, unfortunately. How are you boys doing?
Fantastic, Claris. I cannot wait for these games to get up to speed.
I might be getting dethroned in a sense, but I think that we might have a little bit of an improvement here. This guy is the real deal. I'm excited to be sitting next to Dunk Train, and of course you again. And NA is looking really strong right now.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the American scene as a whole is going to shape up here. There's been a lot of shake-up for sure when we're actually getting into this tournament. We'll get into that a little bit later on. We've got a lot to talk about for sure. Let's take a look at the whole format as a whole here for the global circuit for fall. We already have one team advancing on to BlizzCon from Europe in Team Dignitas, but across the entirety of the world, regions will be battling it out to figure out who is going to be moving on to BlizzCon as well, which is the first team to join Team Dignitas at BlizzCon. We'll find that out in just a little bit here across the 3 days. And this is the 3 days as a whole here for the North American Fall Regional, as we have 5 games per day to start things off. And then, of course, towards August the 7th, it's the semis and grand final to figure out who is going to be moving on to BlizzCon. Boys, looking at the schedule as a whole, it's nice to cover absolutely every single game, and we're going to see the entire tournament unfold during all of this. It's going to be good.
Yeah, it should be excellent. I can't wait to see how all these shifted rosters end up actually playing out. Nobody knows what the ladder is going to look like at the end of.
I mean, to talk about what Dunk was just talking about, the buzz around the last few days that we've been here is everybody's like, I don't really know what to expect. I don't know who's going to win. And I think that's the coolest part. We look at the schedule and it's just like, wow, like this is actually happening. So right now, like this is just an amazing time.
Yeah. A lot of times when in Heroes of the Storm, we see a lot of kind of roster changes, roster apocalypses or whatever. But this one is one of the more intense ones, and it is going to cause certainly a lot of shakeup. Of course, we can meet some of our casters that are going to be starting things off here for the Fall Regional as well.
Thanks, Claris. Gillian Dredd here, and we're going to be bringing you guys game number 1.
Dredd, I talked to my friends at Astral, and they said Naventic is old news. It's going to be silly how hard Astral beats them.
But I talked to Naventic, and they said this is pretty much free. It's going to be 2-0.
Ooh. Well, we'll have to see who is right about that. We're going to head back to the desk, and we'll see you for game number 1.
Thanks, guys. Always good to check in with Dredd and Gilly as always. And, of course, they will be bringing the first game a little bit later on down the line, as you saw over in the schedule. We also have some other faces to meet along the way as well, as we're going to head over to the stage to meet TJ and, of course, Mr. Solid Jake.
Thank you very much, Kalaris. That's right. We're standing here in the middle of the stage where the action's going to take place. And Jake, they talked about it a little bit, but NA's had a lot of change-ups. There's been new rosters, new teams being formed, and NA hasn't really performed recently at international events. So where does NA stand as a region right now?
Well, kind of just to echo what the panel was saying, it's hard to tell exactly where we stand. I mean, when it comes to the global stage, North America has looked a bit weaker in both the last 2 seasons, but here in fall, we're in this state of post-roster apocalypse where there's a lot of new teams that have risen from the ashes. And I think this event's going to be very even, but there will be 2 teams that are the pack leaders in this group.
Yeah, only time will tell. But throughout the weekend, I'll be conducting interviews with the teams and some of the players up here on the stage. So it should be really fun. But it looks like we're getting ready to get started with that first match. So let's send it back over to the panel.
Thank you very much, guys. This is the group overview as a whole here. These are the 8 teams that are going to be competing throughout the North American Fall Regional, as we have Group A standing out as a deep group in terms of talent indeed. And then Group B, which will be covered tomorrow. Gale Force Esports, Team Name Change, Gul'dan's Game, and Vox Nihili. Obviously, we will be going over to Group B tomorrow, but is there anything in particular that kind of stands out there for you, just kind of as a short point?
Right now, I think Vox Nihili is one of the teams to look for in Group B. I really can't wait until I see them play tomorrow, because they are coming from dominance in the amateur scene, and we're going to get to see them a lot. But this will be Group A today.
Yeah, indeed. Group A will start things off. Team Naventic comes in as what a lot of people will consider to be one of the big favorites here coming into the tournament, Jay Howe.
Yeah, the big thing about Naventic is we saw, like, they replaced McIntyre, they brought in Thompson. And it's kind of a big question mark, because what we saw a lot before was a lot of role changes, a lot of different setups that they had. But I feel Thompson gives them definitive roles. Is it enough to adapt to the newer style meta? And I think that's the biggest question when we look at Naventic, but you still have to look at them as one of the clear-cut favorites, I think, throughout the weekend.
Obviously, we saw them taking first in the initial regional in summer, but then they actually took second in the upcoming regional. So let's see if they can actually kind of shake that off. This is another team that's coming in, Dunk, Astral Authority. I actually had a bit of a hard time qualifying in the last qualifier, having dropped the other 2. How do you think they're going to fare here in this group?
Yeah, this is all going to come down to what is their mindset like going into this. They know they're the underdogs. They know they need to pull out some magic to win this set. So going into these drafts, going to these games, expect crazy stuff from them. You're going to see some special drafts here, and they are going to need everything in their power to come out of this match a winner.
And then, of course, moving on now, it's Denial Esports, a team that a lot of people are touting as one of the strong competitors coming into this one, Jay Howe.
We look at their roster and we see familiar faces from former Cloud9. Then we see some guys that came over from Team Name Change. And I think it's a matter of how do they integrate the players from TNC. I think that you look at the ex-Cloud9 members, you know what you're going to get. But then you bring in these new faces, you're wondering, can they fit the role that they need to be able to take that top step? I think they are a really good team to look at.
I mean, Dunk, you've played with a lot of the guys on Denial Esports for a long time and won championships with those guys. Can they mesh with the other members from TNC well?
Yeah, I think CAF and K1 will do an amazing job forming the backbone for Denial, and then it'll be very easy for Prismat and APM to meld into that team.
All right, and of course, rounding out Group A, it will be Murloc Geniuses. Again, because we said that Group A was so stacked, this is a team that can certainly cause some surprises, Jay Howe.
Like, the biggest part about this is that it's a name that we would have heard about a year ago at this time. And now all of a sudden they've reformed, they've regrouped after the roster apocalypse. And it's another question mark we have coming into the weekend is, are they good enough? They've been playing consistently for the last year, just on different teams. Now that they're regrouped, are they good enough to take the next step that they couldn't take a year ago?
Right, Cathanlock and Cadel were 2 of the original members from Murloc Geniuses, and now they actually have a brand new, fresh support in Jun, who's coming in as his first LAN experience. And nerves going to get to him. I mean, you've played on the big stage before. Is that something that is a factor?
It definitely can be a factor, especially when you've never played before on this setting. You don't know how you'll react. Some players, we see them rise to the top under the pressure. Some people get buckled down. It's going to come down to how good he is in this situation.
All right, well, here is our bracket for Group A. Double elimination. So basically, win 2, you're through. Lose 2, you are out here. Later on game will be Denial Esports going up against Murloc Geniuses, but we will be starting things off with Team Naventic going up against Astral Authority here to begin proceedings for our fall regional. Our first team that we're going to take a look at is going to be Astral Authority here, who, again, you know, coming into this group, a lot of people will consider to probably be the weak link of the group, but it is still, you know, we've seen a few of these members doing, you know, pretty well in the previous regionals. I think they got like 5th through 6th during their previous regionals. So, as you were mentioning, Dunk, they need to bring out something a little bit special here to cause the upset.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone knows going into this, they are the underdogs in this match, like we mentioned. We've seen them draft crazy things before, especially on weird maps. Towers of Doom, one of their favorites. Stuff like that. We're going to see probably some special drafts here.
Okay.
J-How?
Well, we just saw right there. It just showed Claudius, and there he is right there. He's going to be one of the main people that's drafting for this team. He brings a different element than Astral is used to. They brought in him, and they brought another member along as well with Battery to come in. And so it changes the dynamic from what we've seen from Astral over the first 6 months of the year. And now the fact that we've got Claudius here, it changes a lot of their makeup, but their familiar face with Frozen X, you know what you're going to get out of him. He plays a lot of that specialist flex role and then talking trees. I mean, it's just the core is there, but it's almost like a different team entirely.
Is a Battery and those kind of members going to be able to gel with them? We shall see, of course. On the other side, we do have Team Naventic, a previous champion here in North America, coming second in the last regional against GFE, of course. But they themselves have a new member in Tomster. And Dunk, once again, I mean, you've played with some of these guys before, and likewise, Tomster, you probably end up playing with him a little bit, even if it's just online. How do you think this team as a whole stands going into this group?
I think this team is going to be really excellent at this event. Fan, Zuna, really high power players, and now you add onto that Tomster. We're going to see some amazing plays from them. I think this is one of the most solid teams. They had the roster change that should solidify their lineup, whereas a lot of other teams were still figuring things out during roster apocalypse. They've figured it out immediately and are going to be amazing. They've had the most time to iron out everything for this roster.
Like, the cool thing about this is, as we see Fan there, he's preparing. But the thing about Fan is you've got Fan and Zuna, as you said, on the front line. They create so much havoc because they're so good at what they do. Bringing in Tomster, like, Tomster's hero pool is kind of interesting when I think about the dynamic here. If he hops on somebody like Greymane or he's on that back line on Falstad, you can expect him to make plays, and it's because they allow him to with that front line. It's just a matter of what happens when their dynamic changes a little bit. Is that going to be enough? And then there's the man himself, T-God, as some might say, because he's made a name for himself at these regionals. He's a big-time player.
A lot of people, I mean, we've been focusing on Fan a little bit there as well. Many of these regionals, I come along and then we're saying, Fan, best player in North America. Does he still hold that attribute?
Well, he has to prove it here at this event. I mean, we haven't seen them play in a while. They look shaky on international tournament level, but again, the level of the players in those is so high. When he comes back to North America, is he going to feel like a god and crush everyone? Or is he going to come back, feel weakened from that international play, and have some problems? We'll have to see here. But I think he's going to come out and be a star again.
All right, something that we've kind of been speculating about is what kind of meta we're going to see come out of this region. And that's something that was probably going to be answered in a couple of our first drafts. Of course, make sure to join in with the discussion with the hashtag HGC. Make sure to tweet at us, at ESL_Heroes, as well as Heroes Esports to kind of join in with the discussion and tell us who you think is going to win some of these games, of course, as there is going to be a lot of games going on throughout the entirety of the 3 days. It's going to be draft number 1, and it will be on Tomb of the Spider Queen here between Astral Authority and Team Naventic. Looks like first pick on Astral Authority's side, and Falstad and Kerrigan are the bands boys.
Yeah, I mean, Falstad, just one of the globally most powerful heroes in the game right now. Everyone agrees with that. Knocking him out, not surprising. The Kerrigan ban, also another hero that we saw see so many buffs. Everyone's been playing her lately. No surprises there. Now, Greymane, first pick, that is a really aggressive pick. I like it, especially taking it away from T-God, like you mentioned, Jay Howe.
I think the biggest dynamic, obviously, I think we're going to see a lot more Kerrigan bans than we've traditionally seen.
Yeah,
As you said, she's disrupted the meta pretty heavily. I think more melee heroes is what's been there, but I think first pick Greymane, something that we've seen, it's a lot of first pick Kael'thas or a lot of first pick Greymane. I don't think you want to pick a Kael'thas into a number of people, or in particular Tomster, that could be staring at you with a Greymane if you decided to first pick Kael'thas. So I like the fact that Astral is taking control of that pick and forcing Naventic into maybe something a little bit different, because if they were to go first pick Kael'thas, he's a really strong hero, but he's also very, very dangerous when you have Greymane looking at him.
I'm always enjoying the power behind Greymane at the moment, because in my mind, as if you needed Eagle Wolf at level 16 to just go completely ham on people. Now he has it, and now they've picked him up, and it's going to be Zul and Zagara on the other side for Naventic. What are you making of this?
Wow, so we saw Astral go with that Greymane, who's a great hero killer. And then Naventic immediately responds with, okay, you're going to take over the team fighting, we're going to take over the map control. Right. Tomb of the Spider Queen is one of those maps where your early game pressure can get you such a huge lead. That map objective, those spiders, they do so much damage. If you've already taken down the walls, you can just get a huge lead and run away with the game. So I like the emphasis on the PvE aspect, given that they know Astral Authority has to try and teamfight them.
So, Dunk, we look at this, like, Zul's normally one of the more heavily contested heroes on a map like Tomb of the Spider Queen because of the lane control that you were just talking about. Zagara used to be that one person, the stalwart, that's always like, I've got my creep down, I'm going to keep vision on one of the turn-in points, we dare you to turn in the other, and we're going to control the map that way. I'm a little surprised. I don't normally see double specialists on it. Are you surprised that we're seeing Zagara and Zul first two picks?
Yeah, I am a little surprised, but I think it's a response to the Zagara changes, right? She is a different hero now. She's much more momentum-based. If she gets ahead, she really is going to take over the game, and I think this actually plays into their strengths. They're playing solid heroes. They're going to control the early game, get to a small lead, and just build on that and build on that and build on that in consistency, rather than trying to make a flashy teamfight win, get a huge wipe, and end the game. That's not what Naventic wants. Right. Naventic knows they're the top dogs going in here. They just want to play safe, standard, and win.
And it feels like almost since the patch where minions have become a whole lot more important and more powerful, you're seeing, I mean, even with Sylvanas coming in now, a lot of this revolves around the idea of kind of compensating for that, playing towards it. So obviously great at dealing with that, Zagara good at dealing with that, and then Sylvanas on ETC on the other side. What can you tell me about those guys?
Yeah, the Sylvanas is definitely a response to this double specialist pickup. You have to have some way to deal with those heroes. Yep. Jay Howe mentioned the Kael'thas, which is fantastic on this map. He brings great wave clear. That would have been good too, especially to combo with the ETC. But they're saying, look, Zagara, Zul, we need all the wave clear we can get. Have to pick up that Sylvanas, even though it's not typically regarded as one of the most synergistic with ETC.
It's interesting when I think about rotations. Zagara can pretty much man a lane by herself, but then you have Zul, and a lot of times what we see in the rotations is you try and disrupt the rotations of the other team, but you want to dive in with Greymane here, have a Bone Prison courtesy of Zul. ETC is going to power slide in or try and body you off. I feel like the blow up potential is there, so that's why I'm like really curious what Naventic's next few picks are going to be, because I feel like they need some type of burst damage. I don't think it's necessary because we talked about the map control, but I still feel like they need a really strong, I mean, do you think with Zul up there that we're going to see of the double warrior? Do you think that we're going to see the solo warrior with the Zul? I mean, there's so much, I think, with the new meta that could be chosen, but looking at Naventic, maybe just Zul and a solo warrior?
Yeah, I think if they were to pick Li Ming here, it might really play into their strengths. They have the Bone Prison synergy for the Li Ming damage, then they can fill out a tank spot, and Li Ming tends to struggle on this map at dealing with the minion waves, but they've already got that covered, so it would be great to fill that in there. Looks like they are going to be locking in that Rhaegar, just the usual support role, picking up that mainstay Rhaegar. Everyone knows he does his job well, fills up your health bars. He's just going to be excellent here, keeping that Zul alive. The Bone Shield with the Shade talent, avoiding that auto attacks, can buy time for those last second Ancestrals. Those are always great.
Oh, and Tyrael coming in. Happy times already here. So Tyrael, he's had a few changes himself, a bit of a talent rework, as it were, a little bit of a shuffle here and there. How do you think that's going to fit into this composition, Jay Howe?
I mean, I think it fits really well. I mean, I think Tyrael right now you can consider a top tier hero, especially when you look at the changes to Murden, obviously, and it's just a minor change that he got. Changed his kit drastically with the Dwarf Toss, no longer becoming unstoppable there. And so I like the Tyrael pick. It's something that when I got to watch Naventic scrim, it's like any time they could get Tyrael, they were taking Tyrael. That's how good he is.
I love the Tyrael here in response to the Greymane as well, because Astral still had room for Tyrael. They could have picked it. By taking it away, you remove that huge Greymane Tyrael synergy that you have seen dominate international tournaments. So I really like that pickup for them. Astral Authority responding with the Uther. Okay, if we can't get Sanctification, we'll get Divine Shield. All we want to do is enable this Greymane to get on target. If he gets to that Zagara, gets the D-Shield, Zagara is going to go down. So this game is going to be all about managing the PvE pressure from Naventic versus the kill pressure from Astral Authority.
We look at the fact that Naventic banned out Thrall. I think that they have a sense that Astral Authority probably wants to fit another melee with their comp. And by taking Thrall off the board and Kerrigan's off the board, I feel like it leaves Sonya open. But like I said, the dynamic for Astral Authority with their player lineup, it's like the hero pools are completely different than what we would normally see. And that says, hi, my name is Claudius, I play Zeratul.
Yeah, very much so. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure he actually goes cleave build with this, right? And even if he does, they need a little bit of extra wave clear going up what Naventic is presenting, right? Surely.
Yeah, absolutely going to be critical there. Also, the Zeratul does an interesting thing by pressuring the Zagara here. If you're the Zagara lane, you really want to take advantage of that by constantly pushing the walls, but Zeratul is so hard to keep track of on those rotations. It's going to be really difficult for that Zagara to pressure without being at risk of getting ganked by this Zeratul.
I find the very late Kael'thas fantastic. It's like, well, he survived all the way down this draft. May as well pick him up. He's still really, really good.
That's like that moment in the draft where everyone's like, guys, it's last pick. Kael'thas is up. Oh, KT is still up? I guess we better pick it.
I said that they needed somebody that could get some blow-up potential. Now, I believe this is like on the patch before. We see a little bit of minor KT changes. So I think the fact that we see the Bone Prison is going to be there, the lockdown potential that you're going to get between those two heroes in the follow-up, I think it puts a lot of pressure onto Astral Authority. You know, you and I think, Dunk got a chance to talk about this with the fact that Zeratul and the maps that he might be good on, stuff like that. Is Tomb of the Spider Queen one of those maps?
I don't know, Jay-How. I mean, we've seen Zeratul run to excellent success on this map before, but a lot of times with an Azmodan, where the Zeratul-Azmodan synergy comes into play, plus Tomb is Azmodan's best map, so you combine those factors and the Zeratul-Azmodan can be game-breaking. But here, yeah, Zeratul has good targets. Zagara, Kael'thas, those are both heroes that you're happy to play Zeratul into, and he has the Uther to protect him with the D-Shield on those dives. But the map is small. Sometimes it can be easy to keep track of those Zeratul rotations. So it's going to be all about Astral Authority hiding their Zeratul positioning. And if they can do that, then maybe they can make some plays with the early game and stop this overwhelming minion pressure that Naventic's going to have.
It seems like when I look at these two compositions as a whole, Naventic has once again found themselves in a very comfortable position with a very heavily sustainable kind of damage-dealing comp, whereas Astral Authority seems quite surgical, quite very finite to actually make work. Is that something that you would echo the sentiments here? Is it going to be difficult for them to execute?
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the heroic abilities available for Astral Authority. I mean, they have Divine Shield, they have Mosh Pit. These are hugely impactful abilities, Void Prison, but it requires precise timing.
Right.
Naventic just has to not get caught and blown up, and they'll win the overall grindy style team fight, especially if you're contesting over those turn-in points. Zagara is a monster there. So Naventic really wants to play slow fights around turn-ins to get value out of their composition.
Of course, and here are the players. Here is what they are going to be playing here. To the left-hand side, it will be Astral Authority with, of course, Dykhammer on Uther, Claudius on Zeratul, Talking Trees on Greymane, Frozen X on Sylvanas, and Battery on ETC. And then over to the right-hand side, it's Naventic with Zul being played by Fan, Kael'thas on Tomster. We have Tyrael being played by Zuna, Zagara on Big Impact, and Rhaegar being played by Kenma. Overall, it looks to be an interesting lineup from both. I'm interested to see if this kind of trend is going to continue throughout the tournament as this goes on. But thank you very much, guys. We'll check in with you during the games later on down the line. Of course, we're now going to head over to our commentators to bring you game at number 1 here between Astral Authority and Naventic. It's Gilly and Dread.
Thank you, Kyle Laris. Dread, I am so pumped for this game. Number 1, we've got a clash of styles. We've got this team fight-oriented, big team fight heroics from Astral Authority versus the crazy split push. Maybe some picks too with that Kael'thas, but Zagara and Zul, I think, is going to be very difficult for Astral to keep up with early on.
Yeah, I'm really fearful of Astral Authority, largely when it comes to the laning phase. When you see the wave clear and just map control that Team Naventic's composition has as a whole, they really need to gain value out of the Zeratul if they're going to be effective in the early half of this map. And we know that it can be pretty snowballing.
It can be very snowballing. Once you start to get that first turn-in phase, if you time it out right, then you can make it so your opponents can't get another one right after that, and from there on continue the push further and further. And with Zagara and Zool coming back from that would be so, so tough, especially because, as it was mentioned by the panel, Zagara is now so momentum-based in a game. If you get that early lead, if she gets the creep spread, man, it's going to be terrifying.
Yeah, and we already see the situation too. The 1v1 lane is actually going to be a Zagara versus Zeratul. Zagara, we talked, she's going to be a problem. She's got the infest, and she's going to absolutely dominate this lane. Zeratul has a very difficult time being able to deal with her because of just how much wave clear she has. So I'm already fearful here that they're struggling already. Astral Authority in the upper 2 lanes, and bottom is not going to get pretty.
Yeah, with Zool, the rotations, they not only have to deal with the minions, they have to deal with his skeletons too. And you're right, she is a 1v1 monster, Zagara, in this bottom lane. And you see Cladius pushed all the way back, ammo being drained at 1 minute into this game.
Yeah, it's already struggling. The FS is only going to gain more value, especially since the adjustment of damage from those minion changes here. We do see ETC is trying to bait out a little bit here, and in the upper half, just constant wave clear coming out from Naventic. He does get setted out though.
I've seen Big Impact really like that Infest talent, of course, making the ranged minions do more damage, and that will only increase as she continues to do siege damage later into the game. We also have Backlash, not something we always see from Zool, but that does mean that you have to be very cautious of where you're standing when you're up against him, and that could cause problems for Zeratul.
Yeah, Kemba getting caught out a little bit. Fan as well taking a bit of damage. The response onto Talking Tree. The team is in a bit of pursuit here. Fan losing his health, but he does get healed up by Kenma, and that skirmish is going to go with no trade on either side. And you were touching up on Backlash, and I think a large portion of that is just having the Tyrael.
Yeah.
They can depend on him for the survivability tools. Shade is not nearly as necessary, and they're going to be able to get that bonus damage. You collapse into them, they Sanctification, and then they have a really good burst response.
Yeah, and it just makes it scary for Cladius, again, to try to get into those fights, knowing that the minute that's popped, he has to be watching so that he gets out of that, because it is such a big damage boost.
Yeah, it is. And again, this control that we see out of Naventic, their composition, the wave clear, the 1v1, everything is looking so pretty for them so far. No team has managed to be able to get a turn in for the time being, and I think that's going to fight over that is going to be happening relatively soon.
Well, something we see from Cladius pretty often is gathering power. Gravity Labs to follow up Bone Prison, and Battery's trying to get out of there, but they're also trying to turn this fight around. Trees taking a bunch of damage, and with Eldruin's might, Kenma jumping in, they pick up the first blood.
Yeah, Dark Chimera is going to be rooted there, but these Path the Wall won't be able to get the follow-up. Great power slide from Battery, but it might taking a bit of poke as a response here. At level 4 as well, when it comes to the talents, one thing I want to point out for this Gara 1v1 lane, she went with Serrated Spine, so over time she's going to have better teamfight scaling. Not as much lane dominance as maybe Medusa's, but let's be honest here, she didn't need to win the lane any harder. She's already done that pretty convincingly.
Yeah, that will help her later on with the teamfight damage. Of course, we'll continue to see what she builds into, especially with her heroic abilities, since now Nidus Network is much more viable and we see more often.
Yeah, we do see it in some situations. It'll be interesting to see if we see Big Impact move in that route here. Only 11 coins, or excuse me, gems turned in for any of the teams here on the side of Naventic. Both have enough to almost get a turn in. Naventic does have enough for a turn in. Their pick made it to where Astral couldn't, but for now, it's kind of just a lane dominant style game.
I like that Naventic is taking this slow though with the turn-ins, because they know they have so much control over both of the turn-in points, and if they can already get towers down, get an experience lead, take those down for Web Weavers later on, they can only ensure that they get that double turn-in phase around level 10.
Yeah, and not only is the patience with the amount of control that they have showing how, I would say, just skilled as a team, understanding what they can and can't get away with, but it's only going to gain more value for those turn-ins, right? Like top has already almost been destroyed when it comes to structures. Bottom has gotten absolutely dominated. Mid is the only one with the front wall really remaining here, but Battery under a bit of pressure will be power sliding out. So I agree a lot with the points that you bring up. It's just they're only showing how dominant of a team they really are with this draft.
Yeah, and the focus on the top and bottom makes sense. Top is where Boss pushes later on. Bottom is where you can get the Giants, where a lot of times you don't even realize, because you're in these team fights around the turn-in points, Giants are taking down your keep in the bottom lane because they can push hard in that one. So I love the focus, just everything that's coming out from Naventic from this draft.
Yeah, they've done a really good job so far in this game. We do see them messing around a bit here. Also, keep in mind, we do see Flask build on the side of Greymane.
Right. That is something that we have not quite seen as much, but it's starting to pop up again as recently with some of his changes. He's picking up Incendiary Elixir, so that does mean he is going to be stacking that up. It will increase the splash damage, helping him out with that, and as he can get and finish the stacks, then that will also reduce the cooldown of Flask. So it's a lot more poking style for our Greymane player, and because they're relying on Uther as their solo heal,
But a great power slide coming in onto Kenma. They're falling very low. He has no Ghost Wolf to get out of here. Will Trees be able to convert the kill? 70 health. Good shield from Zuna. Got to be able to keep him alive through that flask.
Oh, no kill for Astral, and now they're pretty far up while these Web Weavers have been doing damage. It looks like they may all get out. Battery uses power slide because he knows he's about to get hit by the Bone Prison. But still, the push rages on from Naventic. Zagara having so
time
much
of her
control on
life.
the bottom. She is so happy down here right now.
Yeah, when you put Zagara in a lane where she knows she's going to be absolutely able to dominate it with the turn-in as well, such a beautiful spot for them, but they've managed to secure an entire level lead so far in this matchup, and they're closing in on the 10 relatively soon. It's going to be about a level and a half here. Probably going to be a triple fort. I expect Naventic to be very aggressive with that lead, trying to get more structural advantage because, I mean, they can. They have... It's pretty much their world right now. They get to choose what is the best route for us to execute on this game. Typically, I would say opening up the map as best you can on Tower or on Tomb, just to make sure those Web Weavers gain more and more value, because it's kind of hard to end games with it. So if you can get structures on your own, that's typically the best route to go.
Oh, Astral Authority coming in just as Naventic hits 10, and Dark Chimera is not going to get out of here. A lot of things used for it, namely Poison Nova, but even with that, maybe showing some indecision, some over-aggression.
Yeah.
Something that I saw from them in their qualifiers is a bit of over-aggression from Astral Authority. They knew their opponents were about to get 10. I think they were trying to get a kill before that, but it's just not going to be the case.
Yeah, you saw they were kind of panicked, like get the back, get the reset, try and force before they hit 10. Just a little bit miscalculated on that rotation, and it cost them only one life. It could have been worse, I guess, this way we can look at this situation. Now Naventic, though, is closing in towards another turn-in here. They do have 36 gens that add to the 23 they have on their side. Level almost 11 here, 210. There it is. I expect them completely to just group up and maybe start threatening keep front walls at this point. And it's only 7 minutes into this match.
Yeah, probably maybe we'll keep Big Impact in another lane to split push if they want, but they could also try to see if Astral goes for a defense and be ready for a big team fight off of that with heroic abilities, knowing Astral's just not quite at that point yet. They have Devouring Maw. So if anybody from Astral groups up in this defense, that could be a huge fight for Naventic.
Yeah, and we see that Zeratul has actually isolated himself. He's going to be clearing on bottom here, and they do make the rotation to try and get a pick. It's only Zuna and Kenma. He gets away with the stealth, burns the blink. They largely wanted that target just because of how many gems he has on him. The lack of a counter turn in here would be absolutely devastating for Astral Authority, so good job on Claudius. He'll be able to get out of the situation, but he's losing everywhere else on the map.
He is, and this is a lot of valuable time, too, to try to help his team defend versus the Web Weavers. Naventic starting to push up the mid. They could always rotate up and try to get that final fort in the mid, but they're focusing on this bottom lane now, knowing they still have an advantage, but at least Astral Authority have gotten heroic abilities, and all of them very standard across the board. It is Devouring Maw from Zagara.
Yeah, Battery's actually getting the flank here. Nobody's been able to scout that out. Now Zuna does move into position. Two-man power slide, Divine Shield, and the Mosh Pit. Great cleanse coming out for Kenma, but he's not going to be able to get out of it. Big impact under pressure with the four-man Maw!
He just barely gets in there, and Ancestral Healing brings Big Impact back. They're bringing this back around, and they take out Zeratul. They have Bone Prison on trees, and Fan is going for the kill there. Living Bomb will finish off ETC. They don't get anybody else, but 3 kills off of that. Web Weaver still pushing bottom, and Naventic will get first keep.
Man, that team fight started out so ugly, and they thought the counter response with the Maw might be enough, but with such large cooldowns like ETC's Mosh Pit and Divine Shield going to be burnt there, they just really didn't have anything to be able to deal with that team fight. It's such a struggle to be in the position that Astral Authority is in now. They already are going to be a keep down. The new minion changes, man, those catapults are going to be absolutely just devastating to be able to deal with. Mid fort's down, top fort is down. Right now, they really need to be looking for picks.
How amazing, too, of Big Impact as well, right? Barely makes it into the VP after getting such a huge mod to help his team out. Out of that, Kenma is able to make sure to get Ancestral Healing, and he can get back into the fight. Really good synergy from Naventic in our game number 1. Now with level 13s too, and again, they've just got total control, and they're making sure to sit around the turn-in points. They know that with Sylvanas, a turn-in can be a lot more valuable for Astral Authority. They don't want to let it happen.
That was just ridiculous how this has played out so far, but now it's just absolute control here coming out from Naventic. They're playing to their composition very, very well. Now getting aggressive here into the mid lane. Power Slide is going to come out and hit 2 targets, but Talking Trees is now under a lot of pressure. Gets the gravity lapse there. He goes back in response into Thompson, but it cost him his life. Chimera is now on the run as the Poison Nova still ticks and hits Battery here, so I believe that he'll probably end up losing his life as well. This is going to be 3 for 0 here on this for Naventic. Oh, but they weren't actually able to confirm. 2 for 0.
Oh, Sanctification comes out late there, and that will be the death of Zuna. 1 kill, at least for Astral. 1 stack for Gathering Power.
I mean,
Maybe it
it's the
starts
silver
here.
lining, you know? That's how I put it in this type of situation. Just because they're structurally so far behind, their wave clear isn't necessarily poor, but I wouldn't say that it's great. And how much they've kind of struggled when it comes to just their overall team fight is just so difficult.
And as you can see, Catapults starting to make things hard for Astral Authority in the bottom lane. Meanwhile, Bruisers are going to stall them out here in the mid, and they're still playing the catch-up game constantly with Team Naventic. They want to get at the same talent tier and get a fight, but every time that they've gotten close to that, Naventic have gotten some way of getting ahead, whether it's a web weaver push or they find some picks off of that, and Astral just can't ever do what they're trying to do.
And now the rotations here. Naventic is trying to get the turn in as best they can. I expect them, if they are able to get the turn in, I would pressure top. It would be my ideal lane, not only because it's the boss lane, but when you have bottom keep taken out already, you want to get as much split pressure on your opponents as possible. And timing that around your 16 is ideal, because again, that's one of the bigger power spikes in the entire game. Fan getting caught out maybe a bit here. He does end up popping his E onto Battery, taking a bit of pressure. The skirmish going out. Divine Shield already going onto the Graven here, but a two-man Void.
All right, Cladius has the Void, Sanctification used, and that gets everybody out of the mosh. Battery already down there, going to push further on. Good Gravity Lap follow-up from Topster, and Trees will get taken out too. There's the Eldrain's Might if they needed, if they wanted to try to body block someone out further, if someone stepped out of line from Astral, but that is not it, and Team Naventic have made it to 16. They made it through the very small window that Astral had to make a pick happen, to try to win a team fight on even ground, and with that, again, they have enough for another turn-in. Boss is available too. They have a lot at their disposal.
Yeah, they're probably, I would expect them maybe try and get a double stack here, Boss with the turn-in, just because of how much control they have on a map. It is a risky play in the sense, but they do have a decent amount of boss control, right? We do have Tyrell, he's got the opportunity with the Holy Ground, and then we also see that Zagara has the Maw, and those are some of the best tools that they have. They decide not to go that route, play it a bit safer here, and pressure on the upper half of the map for the time being. But right now, Astral Authority on the back foot here. They really can't do too much.
Interesting level 13 talent for Uther, Holy Shock.
Yeah.
So now he can do damage. It will increase next Holy Light after that, but using your heals, of course, Uther being very cooldown dependent is always a risk to then use it for damage, but we'll see if that's going to pay off for Dark Chimera. Might be feeling they need all the damage they can get at this point. Gravity Labs far away hits it. We're going for the body blocks from Zuna, just chasing down Trees.
And so much pressure happening elsewhere on the map, even in the team fight. If they don't manage to get a kill with how busy Naventic has been able to keep Astral Authority here, they're now going to be losing their keep. Webweaver pushing in through bottom as well. Mid is set a bit back, so probably not going to be able to throw in a keep quite yet. But if they get 2 to 3 picks here, it's going to be a triple keep or potentially game. Naventic is trying to be the aggressors here. You see Zuna posturing around. They have Sanctification, which is great to move onto the core, but it's a bit too early.
Yeah, they have basically everything except Phoenix, so they could have also tried to moss some people if Astral Authority grouped up for defense, but they're very fine with how this game is playing. Up 3-level lead, they have every keep down except for this mid one where they're starting their final siege. And again, if at any point they can get those picks, they know this time that it will be the end of the game.
Yeah, man, triple keep here for Naventic in their favor over Astral Authority. They picked a control comp, and it feels like that's all they've done. This entire game, never let go. They had put a really good amount of pressure. I would only argue at the second turn-in. I felt like they didn't get as much as they can, but Fan getting caught out by the power slide there. Battery getting a really good amount of damage into him as response here. And Naventic just doesn't care. They have the 16-tier advantage. They Sanctification very early. Dark Chimera is in a rough position here. He does Divine Shield himself. That's going to be a pretty big mosh pit there, hitting 3 targets with the Void Gilly.
They hit 3 targets, and they've got Void Prison in the back, too. Topster finally gets the Ancestral Healing, but in the midst of that, they lose Zagara, and they lose Zul, too. So with that, Naventic cannot end the game. They have to move back, and finally, Astral Authority have found a couple of picks that they desperately needed in this game, but they're still fighting such an uphill battle.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where you're like, that was very good. You did what you needed to do to try and come back in this game, but is it too late? And it really does kind of feel like it's so far into this matchup again. They're already 2 keeps down. With the new catapults, they are just absolutely terrifying to be able to deal with. Mid keep is almost fallen as well, and you have to get through a fort, a keep, and then maybe you can look towards core if you're able to get a couple picks. But they did manage to pick up 16 and are trying to get a counter turn in here. So a tempo swing for Astral just isn't going to be enough.
Yeah, you mentioned those catapults, and it's crazy the difference in decision-making that those have caused since coming out. You see people going back so much more frequently to deal with them. You have to be very cognizant of how many are in the lane, what exactly they could do to the core, and if it's worth what you are going to be able to get done while you're out on the map. At least the web weavers in mid, or in bot and top, will be able to kind of stall that out for now, but that does mean that this mid is really the only place Astral can try to get some structural damage in.
Yeah, I know. I think something that a lot of players might underestimate when it comes to this map is their great defensive tools. The catapults don't have to hit the core, they just get rid of the web weaver. So the counter response here, top has already almost gone down, so is bottom, and the web weavers have barely even moved. So this is the moment Astral has to be able to threaten this core. They have Sylvanas, they have the tools, but oh my gosh, an immense amount of damage. Divine Shield already burnt as well. Frozen and Astral Authority now on the retreat.
Zuna using Holy Ground to zone Battery away. They have been so focused on taking out ETC, and once again they bring him down just before he would have had Mosh Pit to try to once again win a team fight from that. Cladius is going to get hit by the Bone Prison. He will go down. They're already trying to chase down Trees too. This should be it. Naventic getting 2, almost to get Trees. Frozen X will go down 2. Haunting Wave right into Naventic. Kinma jumps in with Hunger of the Wolf. A lot more damage, secures the kill, and that'll be it. Game number 1 controlled from start to finish by Team Naventic.
Naventic, really, I mean, when it came down to the draft, they did exactly what they wanted to do there, and I think you brought it out, talking about the rotation in the early half, when they weren't forcing those turn-ins. It's a very subtle play to not just try and panic and try and get that turn-in as best you can because you want to snowball the map. It just shows how experienced they are as players, understanding, I mean, you know, why risk it is really all they're thinking in their head there, and that's something that may seem simple from a viewer's perspective, but when you are at the lane environment and everything they like there, I think it shows how well-mannered and controlled when it comes to their understanding of the game is.
Especially when you want to be able to get those gems off of you. But we're going to hear even more analysis. Let's head it back to the panel.
Thank you very much, guys. Strong victory there to start for Team Naventic, not only from draft, but also into the game. It really felt like they seized momentum very early on, even from the laning phase, and very rarely let it go.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, right from the get-go of the game, Zagara, solo lane Zagara versus Zeratul. It was back-breaking for AA.
I think they got exactly what they wanted, and they got exactly what works well on that map. Yeah. Like, it's almost like the dream draft for their dream comp. It was just the awkward Zeratul pick. I think we saw one good play out of it, but after that, as you just said, it makes the laning phase so hard. You talked about it in the draft. The laning phase is so crucial, and they dominated that map.
Yeah, Naventic looked like they knew exactly what they were trying to do. The KT Zul just wrecked every wave on the top side of the map, rotated super clean, had so much pressure on the walls, and then on the bottom lane, you saw Zeratul just struggling to survive against Zagara, lost the wall early, lost his well super fast before the first turn-in even. It was just a very difficult early game for Astral.
All right, well, I think we've got some of the highlights even from that game that we can take a look at once again here, because there are quite a few from Naventic being able to pretty much dominate some of these situations, boys.
Yeah, so this is the early kill where Astral tries to connect, but Kenma just barely escapes here. And then, oh man, Gramian's so far out of position.
I remember us talking about, like, they really needed that kill to try and gain a little bit of back there, but they weren't able to get it just at the very last second.
Yeah, and then
the sustained pressure that they were able to put on, these mosh pits came in, and they were really rough. I mean, look at that. The gravity lapse turns, and there's that huge maul. All I could hear was Dread going crazy about that, and rightfully so. I mean, Naventic, the minute we saw Astral put any pressure on, Naventic's like, we're not having any of that. We've still got Sanctification. We've still got Maul, and we've got somebody named Kel'Thas who somehow made it to the last pick.
Yeah, I mean, Astral needed to force something there. They were at the 10 to 12 disadvantage. If they let Naventic go even 30 seconds longer, they would have had the next talent tier advantage. So they did have to force something, but they didn't get the Void Prison on Rhaegar before the cleanse came out. So Zagara just turned, that whole team was ganging up on her, and the Maw, that Maw.
Yeah, it was very, very well done. I mean, there was a fight towards the end where, obviously, Astral Authority gained themselves a little bit of traction, but even that wasn't enough to actually get themselves in a good spot. Of course, our next map will be Towers of Doom coming up here, and it's not exactly the most common map compared to some, but it has certainly gained a lot more favor as of late, and it's something that, you know, we could see surprises on.
I think one of the bigger surprises when we studied this going into the last regional, this is actually one of Naventic's worst maps.
Right.
Astral Authority recognizes that. It's also one of their best maps. There's a reason this was their map pick, and I think that they're trying to take advantage of what they want to do against Naventic, one of their most common scrim partners, and somebody they're very familiar with.
Yeah, absolutely. Astral Authority coming into this match, like we said, we just saw Naventic played a standard game on Spider and just crushed Astral. So now it's Astral's turn to turn the tables and try and make something happen on Towers of Doom because they can try and play an objective-oriented strategy, avoid Naventic, not try and outfight them, which we've seen that they can't do, even when their teamfight composition is better.
Whenever I come to America and I see Towers of Doom, I always think, where's the Vikings? Come on, bring me the Vikings. But never, ever, ever does North America actually provide me with the Vikings. Why not? It's so good.
I think the few teams that would play it or didn't like to play it, Dunk, you might be familiar with them. They just banned it out, said we don't want to play against that.
All right, well, we're going into the draft. Once again, False Starter will be banned out here by Team Naventic. They want nothing to do with that. And will Astral Authority ban out Kerrigan? Yet remains to be seen, boys.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is the Kerrigan map, you know? I mean, it's a bigger map, so she has to rotate longer to get to the places, and she has to go all the way in to defend a shrine cap. So it can be difficult to get your Kerrigan into range without putting her in danger of dying. So the Tyrael ban here from Astral Authority.
We talked about it a little bit last time. Tyrael is now that top tier warrior, and Naventic plays it so well. I think it's something they got a good look at firsthand when they were in Sweden for the Summer Globals. And they're just like, wait a minute, guys, he's actually really good. The rework's good. And now first pick Tassadar.
Yeah, Tassadar's, this is one of his best maps. He's got that ultra long range interrupt on the capture points, plus these fights tend to go long because both teams are poking, both teams are tapping wells. There's not that much all-inning that happens on this map, so Tassadar is a perfect pick. Astral Authority maybe playing into that. They're picking the Grey Main. I think Naventic's going to be able to play a really strong kite-away comp and not allow openings.
Even with the Grey Main pickup, something that was interesting is that they were going for a bit more of a flash build in that previous game. What do you make of that, J-How? Because it's not as common as, say, the usual go-to of diving in there and just getting dirty and things.
It's a really interesting dynamic, you know, especially all the repeat changes that we've seen on Grey Main. I was actually really surprised when I showed it. He was able to hit that questing talent, I believe. He was able to max it out, but the value wasn't exactly there. I mean, the thing that I like, the one question I have about Tassadar is it going to be Tomster on there? Because I've seen Tomster on Tassadar. It's not his best hero. Or is it going to be somebody like Fan? That's kind of the curious thing when I see the rest of the Naventic's draft here.
Are you anticipating anything for these next two picks here for Naventic, Dunk? Or
I'm not really sure what Naventic is looking for here because Astral Authority took the Grey Main ETC, which Naventic dealt with handily in the last game. So Naventic should feel really comfortable here. They don't yet have a specialist. They don't have the Zagara or the Zul or the Sylve. I would like to see one of those to give them more lane management because we saw that was a difficulty for Astral Authority to deal with.
When we look at Tassadar and the fact that we've seen a little bit different prioritization for somebody like Li Ming, and we saw Kael'thas make it all the way to the end. And we talk about a little bit of poke value, but you also have the blow-up potential. It's kind of interesting to see her fall out of that first pick favoritism and the way the new meta is, but she is getting picked up here for the second pick for Naventic. That's what I was wondering, if they were going to go something poke and also secure a lot of damage, which this is another hero that Trees likes to play.
This is fantastic for them on this map, especially. The huge range on her abilities allows her to poke pretty much safely from any position on the map. So it is a really strong pickup, and that Tassadar plus Li Ming means when they pick their front line here, the bruiser that they go with is going to be ultra powerful and scary, because if you have a Zul or a Thrall, then when you land that first CC, Li Ming's gonna be able to follow up, and not only can you not focus the Sonya or Thrall in your face because they're getting task shields, they're super scary because of the follow-up.
Now, Fan is very well known for playing Illidan. Do you think this is an opportunity for them to pick up somebody like a Rhaegar here and then see if they can maybe fit an Illidan into their comp or somebody like that?
An Illidan here, it's just into ETC. That's one of his rougher matchups because he doesn't have a way to deal with the mosh pit. So it's a little scary. I think Naventic wants to play the slow kite away comp more than the try and dive you composition, because you don't want to be man mode against Grey Main unless you're Sonya.
I was going to say Sonya is almost kind of the replacement, in essence, for what you were bringing up, Jay House. So that is going to be locked in there for Naventic, and we all know how well they're able to play out with that. Now, what's Astral Authority going to look to ban from them here? Because the thing is that Naventic's composition so far, it's so flexible. There's so much that can fit with it, so it's difficult for this ban, right?
One of the interesting things that I see from Astral, especially on this map in particular, they're not afraid to go into Brightwing. Now, we've seen some changes on Brightwing. I'm not sure if that fits as well as what they're trying to accomplish, especially when you still look at Rhaegar and Uther still on the board. But taking Zagara off, I think, is a good first step to make sure that they try and get some laning control. So I'm kind of curious to see what Astral's mindset is going forward, as Abathur's another popular choice for them on this map.
Yeah, you don't want to deal with that Abathur on this map. He makes the rotations so difficult with those mines, and when you try and split your team up for the multiple shrine capture moments, the Abathur can just swing all of those contestation points.
Surely Sylvanas is something that has to come in here for Astral Authority.
Yeah, Astral Authority thing. I mean, they did ban out the Zagara, which I think is key for them. They didn't want to deal with that again. But Naventic's team comp is so flexible that it's hard for Astral Authority to find a weak point in the armor of this draft to try and get in there. I mean, that's such a sweet team comp from Naventic to start with.
I think what you were saying, Kalaris, is Sylvanas is one of Frozen X's most played heroes.
Right.
And he plays it really well. So him fitting that in, I think it works for a lot of their comps, and I think it works again for this map in particular. It's just a matter of, do they prioritize that as highly? I don't think they have to worry about Naventic taking it, but I mean, they have a solid draft. They're trying to solidify the front line. We talked about Arthas dunk before. Shortly before this broadcast started, we're like, where's Arthas going to be at here? And here he comes up, first time today.
Yeah, because we haven't seen very much of him in North America, but we saw it used to great success in the European regionals.
We did.
So Arthas, really strong second bruiser on that front line, is actually pretty good against Sonya because he's one of the few tanks that both deals enough damage to Sonya to actually threaten her, but also provides the crowd control so the rest of your team doesn't get killed either.
And she impedes her towards the later stages, right? When you got level 13 talent, slows her auto attacks down, very difficult to deal with. Muradin is going to get picked up on the side of Naventic. So it's kind of the pseudo double warrior, and there you go. There's your Brightwing J-How, your lovely butterfly.
The one thing I'm curious about, Arthas was picked up. Now, some of the times that we see when you have a Li Ming on the other side, you tend to go somebody like a Nubarek. It almost feels like they're more threatened by the front line of Sonya being played by Fan than they are, say, somebody like Biggie, who's probably going to be on Li Ming.
Yeah, I think that was just the difficulty of the draft, was Naventic had this super sweet double threat composition, and you can't pick one that's good against both, right?
And Tychus coming in as the last pick for Astral Authority to go up against that double warrior. Interesting stuff, really, because Naventic's more known in North America for going down the Tychus path than other teams, but Astral Authority pulling this out to try and rip them apart. What do you make of it?
Rip them apart is a good thing. You look at Greymane and you look at Tychus, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. Now, you've got Greymane, who's normally a backline threat, but then you have Tychus, who is a frontline threat. And I feel like there's kind of an interesting dynamic. They're going to have to pick one or the other. And when you have somebody like Tychus, it's really hard for him to dive deep because he's still vulnerable. He's still in that middle range. He doesn't have a whole lot of range on his abilities.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think what Astral Authority expects is they want Naventic to get over eager. They want Naventic to feel like they have to dive in. They want the Sonya to take the wrong path, maybe try and flank. They want Murda to go into their backline. And then instead of having to chase into them, they use the ETC to zone the range follow-up from Naventic, while Tychus Greymane can actually take down a Muradin or a Sonya, whereas a lot of other heroes in that position wouldn't be able to focus fire those heroes effectively.
I mean, looking at this, it feels like both of you are kind of convinced that Naventic's draft is good and stable, but like looking from game 1 to game number 2, are you more convinced now by Astral Authority's draft going forwards? Because to me, it looks a bit more stable in game 1.
I think it definitely lends more to what they're trying to accomplish, and it lends more towards the map. But I think their last comp didn't fit the map as well. I think it definitely fits theirs. Naventic, I think, still got exactly what they wanted. I mean, they first picked Tassadar, which allows you to pick up somebody like Brightwing, who's not going to give you the same type of burst heals. So I think Naventic, again, got what they wanted.
Yeah, this was like a super standard Naventic comp. They are going to feel absolutely comfortable on this map because their composition is just so perfectly tailored to it. And Astral Authority, again, is in a position where how are you going to beat that composition? Naventic can just stay together as 5, and there's no way you're cracking that Sonya Muradin front line.
And the fact that like Tassadar is there as well with the Brightwing to kind of offer up all the shields, very difficult to kind of break through all of that as a whole. It is going to be interesting to see how this is going to play out and how, as you say, Astral Authority is going to be able to crack this nut. Very, very difficult kind of going forwards. Double warrior to be the case here for Astral Authority to the left-hand side, of course. With that Chimera on Rhaegar, Cladius will be playing Arthas, Talking Trees on Tychus, Frozen X on Greymane, and Battery on ETC. And what about Naventic, J-How?
That's going to be Fan on Sonya. Tomster is going to be on Tassadar. Zuna is going to be on Muradin. Big Impact playing that Li Ming. Look for him to make plays. And then Kenma going to be there on Brightwing.
He made the big plays last game with that Maw and was able to secure them quite a good bit of damage for sure. Big Impact bringing the heat here to Astral Authority. Let's see if he's going to do it again. Astral Authority need to win this one, otherwise they are going down to the lower bracket. For now, though, I'm handing you over to Dread and Gilly for game number 2.
All right, game number 2. We'll see if Astral Authority can tie it up and bring it to that last game. Dread, what do you think about the drafts?
I definitely like Astral Authority's composition far better than game number 1. Game number 1, I feel like their risk versus reward, they had to almost play flawlessly, it felt like, in a lot of the team fights here. But they're far more forgiving now. A lot of the analysis that was brought up here is talking about the front line versus the back line and how they have to approach fights. And I agree. I think Astral really needs to be on point on the follow-up between the two tanks here if they're going to be successful.
Yeah, that is always the case, is you want the good synergy between the two warrior players, but let's remember it's Battery and it's Cladius, two players who played together a lot before, and they have a huge Howling Blast right at the beginning of this, following it up with lots of damage from the Tychus. Don't quite secure kill though. Remember, Naventic does have Tassadar, so he can try to sustain through the damage that Astral Authority brings.
Yeah, that skirmish there, already Naventic maybe putting a little bit of their confidence in check. That was a really good job there coming out for the double tanks on Astral Authority here. Good poke there as well coming up from Big Impact. But the wave clear, just from the kill potential and threat of the Arthas ETC in the early game here, has Naventic a bit on the back foot, completely the opposite of what we saw in the first game.
Yeah, Kenma's using his tap already from damage trees is thrown out. And then we'll see how he is able to contend with a Tychus in the solo lane while the rest are going to be going for that mid-bot rotation. As we are coming into, pretty soon, the first Shrine phase.
Yeah, we do see as well, one thing to keep in mind is Tomster being put onto the Tassadar. It's becoming more common, right, with the roster changes that we have, but he's a player that I don't think we've seen at a major play that style of hero too much. So we'll see if he's able to perform effectively here. He definitely has a composition that will complement his style of play. But for now, Astral Authority really has the upper hand in this game here. I do like how they're playing this.
There is that first altar spawn. It is, of course, triple with the 2 top and then the 1 in the very bottom. And it's always difficult to figure out how you're going to split out, but losing somebody here at the beginning would be catastrophic. Trees gets away, showing that he does have Shrug It Off. So once he uses Run and Gun, he will have resistant for a few seconds. It will help him if he gets caught like that again.
Yeah, and they force the tap there onto the Tychus. So the rotation here coming up from Naventic, it will be a 3 versus 1. They're putting heavy concentration with Brightwing in the upper right. Claudius has already collapsed on. I don't think he'll be able to make it out of here. That's a lot of damage there. Big orb. But we do see Talking Trees with a response. Not going to wear the stun for him. Howling Blast is going to hit 2 targets. The top left shots have already been captured for AA. If Claudius survives this, oh my goodness, they survive it. They get the delay as well. They're in such a great spot. Will Tomster be able to get the delay?
The slows were amazing there from Frozen Tempest. They could not continue fighting on. They weren't sure of that. They knew it was wasting a ton of time. And that does mean finally Astral are going to give up the top right. But they still were able to get 4, and I guess they did lose the bottom 1 too. So that will be Naventic coming out just slightly ahead in the first altar phase.
And a lot of that came down just to the immense amount of harass that they were able to get onto Arthas. Yes, he didn't die, but without a tap and without it being able to directly heal, he falls behind into the rotation, which doesn't allow them to contest over that last Shrine objective. But now team's backing out, getting a lot of pressure. Fan sniffs it out here, goes aggressively. He's 1 versus 3 here, gets the port. Zuna coming right over the wall with that Dwarf Toss here. Now we are what was a 1 versus 3 is instead a 5 versus 3 here. Greymane is not making the rotation, and Naventic getting that early invade.
Instead, Greymane realizing that there's so many people here in the bottom is going to start working on the top Pumpkin Sapper camp. So at least maybe they can pick this one up too. Arthas is even slowing them down in the middle from being able to rotate. And Kenma having to fly slowly all the way back up to the top. Greymane should pick those up, and there they are.
But for now, it's just a standard game here from these teams, trying to get as much pressure onto the map. Naventic has shown that with that invade, I think a little bit more teamwork overall. But really when it comes down, I feel like we can't gauge these teams until we get to that post-10 team fight, right? Just because the early game skirmishing here from both of these teams is pretty even footing. And then later it's going to be the synergy out of those tanks. Zuna getting aggressive, Dwarf tossing in here. Decent resistance. Polymorph coming out on the battery power slide as a retreat here. Already a really big upper hand so far for Naventic in this teamfight. Kemba under a bit of pressure, Gilly, but Frozen X retreating as well.
Playdius has been doing such a great job of slowing people down in the back, so Naventic just can't group up the way that they would like to. And all of Astral will get away. They have to heal up, though. They did take a lot of damage from Naventic, but let's remember the scaling from both of these teams. Tychus on one side, Arthas as he gets into those auto attack slows. Later on, a potential route too if he goes further into Frozen Tempest build, which we're already kind of seeing with Biting Cold. Is it Frigid Winds?
Or no. That was Frozen
Frozen
Waste.
Waste. So
Sorry.
he's not using more damage. He's instead going for mana reduction. We'll see if he still wants to go into it, but that's not usually what we see.
I gotta say, I'm a little bit fearful of that talent choice there. But we do see the Skirmish Howling Blast on the bottom half. Great polymorph onto Claudius, losing a bit of his health here on the retreat. We do have only one shrine. Both teams hitting level 7 here, but already a great upper hand for Naventic. Zuna getting the channel, positioning a little bit poor because he's in free range there, as you saw, for the Tychus nade. Again, capping with an aggressive movement. Battery goes in, hits a 2-man power slide, but the polymorph response, great cleanse there going on to Battery, so he's going to be able to retreat here. But will the Frozen Waves be able to slow them enough?
Yeah, Battery had to just extend so far in to try to stop that, but they do kill Sonya. They still have yet to get a Li Ming reset. Some way, somehow, Pleiadius gets dodges all of the damage from Li Ming. They don't let Li Ming get the reset, and that is one great point. For having a double warrior here. They have higher health pools.
Yeah, they did do a very good job there of dropping. I'm pretty sure if Li Ming got a reset, the whole team was dead. They were so low there. And yes, they did get the kill, and technically what looks like the upper hand, but because their health bars were so low, not able to get that next cap there on the bottom half of the map. So we do see a pretty big disparity between the shots on the core. But again, I think I really kind of want to point out that I feel like the double tank hasn't really been on the same point. It hasn't been detrimental yet. I think as this game keeps going on, if we see this kind of split between the two, actually Frozen X getting caught out here, I don't think he's going to be able to survive. But again, if we see this trend, what we've seen in the early game skirmishing, keeps holding true between Battery and Claudius, I personally think this game is going to start snowballing far heavier against them than we've seen so far.
Yeah, Naventic has good scaling into later on too. Of course, Sonya is a strong one, and Sonya's going into a Whirlwind build. They're going to lose Tomster. He will get taken out. The Pumpkin Men will take down a tower too, but Sonya is going for the Whirlwind build as well. Potentially more healing later on at 13, but for now what you get is once you go into Whirlwind, you shrug off all slows and roots, which is definitely going to be nice versus the Arthas.
Yeah, exactly. It gives you a bit of breathing room on how aggressive you can be, right? You aren't too afraid to overextend. Get a couple of W's in there. Okay, he's going to turn on me. Guess what? I've got the Hurricane. We're going to be fine. Brightwing Teleport coming into play here. This will be a 4 versus 4 for now. Dark Chimera taking a lot of pressure. Polymorph coming out onto Claudius. I don't think he's going to be able to get out of here. Good body block there. Dwarf Toss as well. He accepts his fate and will be going down.
Yeah, it seems like he's doing what you want to with Arthas, right? You want to be in there, but he's just taking so much damage, and everyone from Naventic is staying healthy through that because they have 2 supports.
This is exactly why I was fearful of his level 4. Yeah. It does not matter if you're able to get that aggression and be in there for that long duration of time and stay between 5. If you don't provide counter kill potential, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? I feel like that lack of level 4, yes, you're going to be able to hold it forever, but I guess Arthas struggles a bit when it comes to mana, but I guess I feel like you should have faith that you're going to have great resource management there to be able to deal with that. And I mean, good gank there, good force wall. I want to call out for Tomster there to be able to get that kill. And now Naventic again gaining more and more control over this match.
Force wall and knowing that Polymorph will slow him down enough that they'll be able to pick up that kill just in time again for altars to be spawning. Pleiadius will not again make it out of here. He has been constantly caught, and for the double warrior, I know we don't really think of Sonya as that way, but the body blocking, the synergy between the 2 players has been more on point for Naventic.
Another thing to point out when we do see the heroics with the Emerald Wind picked up here, and I mean, it's pretty obvious that when we're facing against the Li Ming, we're going to see the Wave of Force into the ETC. It's a very common matchup that we've seen for some time. I'm surprised we didn't see a stage dive. I'll be honest. I just feel like maybe they feel like the kill potential at some point, but there's so many interrupts. And it's just completely unrealistic, and it's one of the best maps to have the global. Yeah. I thought they might actually take it as kind of a counter response when it came to this matchup here, but AA is sticking to the norm for the most part in this match.
Yeah, they want to see if they can get the big game-changing mosh pit, let Greymane go in, do what he does best, throw down a drill to top that off as well for even more damage. But like you said, it will be very difficult. They already had a lot of interrupts too. They've got Muradin. They can potentially spear it out. So we'll see if they're able to get that mosh that they're looking for. But Astral's already going to start pushing in. They know that they're starting to get behind an experience. They want to take out a bell tower. Here comes Battery in, and there's the mosh pit.
That mosh pit was huge, hitting onto 2 targets there. The Ancestral is coming into play, but it's not going to matter yet. It got canceled out. It's flanked from Fan here, already onto the back line. So what looked like a pretty fight for a moment with the mosh pit, not going to matter right now as they are on the retreat. Claudius, you see, trying to run away. Great body blocking coming out from Tomster here. Again, he is not done. Wave of Force going to push him away. Force Wall is going to be up soon here in a matter of moments. Is he going to be able to get the choke? There it is. Comes into play. Big impact. Will he be able to get the follow-up? Yes, and he will be falling down. Really good team fight.
Yeah, Kimmy using the Emerald Wind just to try to zone away, make sure that they have all the time they need to get another kill. And with that, 20 seconds until Arthas will be back up. And this allows Naventic to trade out for this bell tower since it is so low. We see Astral trying to do what they can to defend this, but they're going to have to be really careful because there could always be a potential rotation from the side, and they could lose more.
Yeah, and that timing that camp there and then being able to get the double shrines means we're going to see 10 more shots going into Astral Authority's core here. They're in a rough spot for the time being. 14 to 36 here when it comes to the shots on the core. They do start the boss as a counter response, knowing Brightwing's capping on the other side of the map. She will be able to port. Keep in mind, she does not have her Emerald Wind. Zuna taking a lot of damage there, getting the Torp Toss aggressively, but damage on a Thompson coming out from that boss. That aggro is very important as Fan gets aggressive.
Trees is off to the side. They're trying to burn down Zuna, who has taken quite a bit, but they're still not giving up this boss yet. They walk right onto the point, and they will take it.
That was an interesting choice there. Now Talking Trees in a bad spot. I do believe we're going to see a lot of aggression. No, they play a bit more passive from Naventic here. They have level 13. They get the boss. 10 shots only remaining for Astral Authority, and they are knocking on another bell tower.
What we see from Sonya is usually, or in the past, has been Mystical Spear at 13, but we did go ahead and pick up Life Funnel, which means that increases her healing off of Rowan from 20% to 30%, and of course that's tripled versus heroes. So you don't really need an escape if you're just constantly healing off everybody from Astral, who is going to be fairly grouped up. They have a lot of melee heroes too that she can get the healing off of.
Yeah, as long as she has the Fury, she almost has 100% uptime for her Whirlwind with this type of build with the 1 second cooldown at level 1. So Fan has a lot of survivability here as long as he's not going to be interrupted or is a bit patient with that. But 5 bell towers are obtained here for Naventic. Great Howling Blast flank here. I expect a port there, but the 3-man Mosh.
Yeah, they have a cleanse on top of that Mosh too, so they were able to get 1 kill, but Emerald Wind pushes a lot of Astral away. They're still not done with this yet as Zuna hops into the fight. He's pushing Dark Chimera away so they can't group up for the healing, and once again, they take out Claudius. Another beautiful force wall to ensure that kill.
Yeah, really good job from them, and that Emerald Wind was absolutely insane, gaining more value because the distance to Brightwing when she's able to get it off because it's easily interrupted. If you're closer, it's going to have a longer suppression type effects.
Right.
And he hit 4-man almost max value there. That was ridiculous coming out from Kenma. But the triple shrine has spawned, almost getting a 16-tier advantage as well over their opponents. Naventic is looking to get 2 more caps here, and that will leave the game here. Upper right has been capped. Fan's going to be capping on the bottom half as well. But the interrupt in the upper half, they are going to be able to fight here. They have not lost quite yet.
Murden's all the way in the bottom with Tychus. Everyone else starting to come up here to this top one. Arthas moving over, so it will be about Tychus and Murden getting here last around the same time. It's a 4v4 for just a little bit longer. There's Emerald Wind.
It only hits 1 to 2 people, though, for the time being. He's trying to get the cap here. A little bit panicked. Talking Trees already very low. Dodges the Storm Bolt, which is good for him in this team fight. Fan under a bit of pressure, but Claudius is as well. Talking Trees now falling slowly but surely in health. Zuna does end up going down there. That's a kill here for Astral Authority. They're looking like they have signs of life yet in this match. Fan on the retreat. Polymorph coming into play as well. No reset coming out for the Li Ming, Gilly.
These polymorphs have been very on point, but the members of Astral Authority starting to get low. They've taken Tomster down enough, but he is Tastar. No, he does not. He has to just shield himself and move around the slow way. So for a few seconds, they might be able to catch a kill while we're waiting for Brightwing and Tomster to come in. There is a root on Kenma.
And everybody getting so aggressive here, but not getting the cap. They zone them off, which is now buying time for Murden to get up. A huge orb there, gets 1 kill. Li Ming with the reset. Misses the second orb. There it goes, another proc. There's another big orb coming into play as well. Big impact. Getting his team the win here. 3-man mosh pit, not going to matter. Interrupt. Oh, good cleanse actually coming out. Stopping the interrupt there. Another reset though. And I think this is going to be GG here for Naventic. Smooth 2-0.
Man, what a crazy fight. Very long and drawn out. Astral had to throw everything they could at that altar, but in the end, as soon as they finally got the 1 Li Ming reset, the fight was done from there. GG, and you're right, 2-0 for Team Naventic.
I mean, the banter before the game, I think my side won, you know?
Let's not bring this into it.
Naventic had the confidence and they executed I mean, rather smoothly for the most part. There was always no situation where it felt like they didn't have the upper hand in understanding and just absolute control of the game.
But more signs of life in that second game. It was very apparent that Astral Authority felt far more comfortable on their battleground pick, getting to grab Towers of Doom. But remember, these guys are scrim partners, so if they've been taking Naventic to that, that's why we could have seen a bit difference in drafts. Maybe they were hoping that Double Warrior would throw off Naventic, but proving that the Brightwing style, having the split soak, as well as their ability to sustain through the damage. They didn't quite have the damage to get through and break through those Tassadar shields and the shielding from Brightwing too.
Yeah, I really feel like the draft in game number 2 was part of the reason we saw those signs of life a bit more, but also I would agree, it was a bit from their play too.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're saying like that, you're specifically talking about the coordination between the Warrior players.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so important that you have them. You want to have somebody who is, like you see Cladius, right, deep into the fight, but they need to be able to switch off as much as possible so that they can both wear damage without going down. And we didn't often see that. We would instead just see Cladius going down because he was so far in, trying to slow down and get a lot of value out of his Frozen Tempests.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to describe it. It's almost like just a constant rotation of who's wearing the damage so far, but we are seeing some of these beautiful plays here. The force wall as well on the Cladius to secure it. Very well done. Impressive from Naventic. But it turns out we do have an interview with TJ and one of the winners from that last match.
Thank you very much, guys. That's right. I'm standing here with Zuna from Team Naventic just to get a few words after that win. First off, you guys, just recently added Tomster. What's the overall feeling of the team like coming into this tournament?
Really relaxed. We feel pretty strong. I think, or at least we feel like we're the strongest team here, so we're just taking each game pretty serious. We just think if we're better, we should win, so we're playing really confidently. As you can see, we're just going in when we should, and we're not making too many mistakes.
Yeah, it seemed pretty quick there. It was a nice 2-0. I want to talk to you about Tyrael for a minute because you guys brought out the solo tank Tyrael in game number 1, and then it drew out a ban in game number 2. We all know that Tyrael's been pretty strong for a long time, but you brought him out as a solo tank. Where do you think Tyrael fits, and what was your mindset behind that pick in game number 1?
In game number 1, it just came down to there wasn't that many heroes left, and we already had Zool, so we couldn't run double tanks. So we just picked that as solo tank because he's really hard to kill, and in rotations he's decent. And on that map, it's like even if you're a solo tank, as long as you can interrupt turn-ins, that's all that matters safely. So that's what it was, the job he was doing.
And do you think Tyrael will continue to draw bans as this tournament goes on? Do you think that's just where he is right now?
I definitely think so. Like double tank Tyrael is just super insane if you can get it off. So definitely think you'll see a lot of Tyrael bans.
All right, cool. And last question, I just wanted to know if there's any teams in particular, it's the beginning of the tournament, are there any teams now with all the roster swaps and some of these new rosters coming out that you're particularly afraid of or that you think might make a big run besides your own?
None too much at the moment. I just want to see the next group stage and the next games. So coming up, we haven't really scrimmed all the teams, so we don't know how good they are. But if they're as good as old C9, then we'll definitely have some problems.
All right, well, thank you very much. Congratulations on your win, and good luck throughout the rest of the tournament. We have plenty more Heroes action to come, guys. We're going to have to go to a quick break before we jump into the next match. But don't go anywhere. More Fall Regional right after this.
After the last regional, there was a lot of roster shuffling going on, and a lot of people were going to other teams.
We had 3 of the original members, and I think that's enough to rename the team back to Murlocs.
I ended up joining up with the rest of Murloc Geniuses. Everyone's pretty much a veteran of the game. June's the only one who's pretty new to the scene.
A lot of people don't really know June, but I feel like he's a really top-tier player for support.
This is his first LAN, so we're ready to see how that goes. We're probably facing our toughest challenge of the tournament in our first match. We're going up against Denial.
We haven't had the chance to practice against them that much, so they might have a few surprises for us.
I do think we have a pretty good chance still. I'm familiar with all of them as people. I've played with them in the past on teams, and I think we can take the fact that we know their playstyle so well to our advantage.
Winning this tournament would show that hard work pays off.
It's hard to say how it would feel to me until it happens. So I'm just waiting for that to actually happen first.